At my wedding, my son Richard stood up to give a toast. Instead, he mocked my new husband in front of 400 guests. "Look at Mum's new stepfather," he laughed. "An old man in a cheap suit. What a loser." His wife Jennifer cackled. Their whole family joined in. I watched my happiness crumble. Then Thomas's security team arrived. Black suits, earpieces. They cleared the venue in minutes. My son's face went white. "Who are you?" he whispered. That's when everything changed. My humble, modest new husband wasn't who anyone thought he was, and my son had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I should have known something was wrong when Richard arrived late to the ceremony. My son, my only child, showing up 15 minutes after the start time, his wife Jennifer trailing behind him in a dress that screamed, "I'm only here because I have to be." But I was too happy to notice, too caught up in the moment, too in love with Thomas to see the storm coming. The ceremony itself was beautiful, small and intimate despite the 400 guests. We'd rented a historic estate in Connecticut, Thomas's choice, though he'd insisted on something modest and meaningful rather than ostentatious. The gardens were in full bloom. May sunshine filtered through the trees. Everything was perfect. Thomas stood at the altar in a simple grey suit. Well-fitting but not expensive looking. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth. Just a kind-faced man of 62 with silver hair and warm brown eyes, waiting for his bride with a smile that made my heart skip. I was 58 years old. Hadn't thought I'd ever feel this way again. Hadn't thought I'd ever want to feel this way again. After David died 10 years ago, sudden heart attack at 53, I'd been alone. Completely, devastatingly alone. Richard had his own family by then, his own life. He'd visited dutifully for the first year, then less frequently, then hardly at all. I understood he was busy, had a demanding job in finance, had Jennifer and their 2 children, had his own world that didn't have room for a grieving widow mother. I'd learned to be alone, learned to fill my days with volunteer work and book clubs and gardening, learned to be content with a life that felt half lived, half-hearted, half over. Then I met Thomas at a community centre where I volunteered serving meals. He was there every Tuesday and Thursday, quietly helping in the kitchen. No fanfare, no attention seeking, just steady, reliable kindness. We started talking over dish duty, started having coffee after shifts, started slowly, carefully, beautifully falling in love. He told me he was semi-retired, had worked in business management and now spent his time volunteering and travelling. He lived modestly, drove a 10-year-old Honda, wore simple clothes, talked about the importance of giving back, of not getting caught up in material things, of finding meaning beyond wealth. I loved that about him. Loved his humility, his groundedness, his genuine, unpretentious kindness. We dated for 18 months before he proposed. Simple proposal, no elaborate production. Just the 2 of us on a walk through the park where we'd had our first real conversation. "Margaret," he'd said, "I know we're not young anymore. I know we've both lived full lives already, but I'd like to spend whatever time I have left loving you. Will you marry me?" I'd cried, actually sobbed, because I'd thought that part of my life was over, thought I'd never feel chosen again, never feel wanted again. And here was this wonderful, humble man offering me a second chance at happiness. Richard had not been thrilled. "You barely know him, Mum," he'd said when I told him about the engagement. Cold voice, dismissive. 18 months? That's nothing, you're rushing into this. I'm 58 years old, I'd replied. I'm not rushing, I'm choosing happiness. I hope you can be happy for me. What does he do? Richard had asked. For work, for money, what's his situation? He's comfortable, retired, that's not what matters. It matters if he's after your money, Richard had interrupted. Dad left you well provided for. You have the house, the investments, the life insurance. This Thomas guy probably knows that. Probably sees an easy target, a low, lonely widow with money. The accusation had stung badly. Thomas doesn't care about money, I'd said. He's the least materialistic person I've ever met. He volunteers at a community centre, Richard. He drives a Honda. He lives simply. He's not after anything except companionship. Sure, Mum, sure. Just be careful. Don't do anything stupid like putting his name on your accounts or changing your will before you really know him. That had been 6 months ago. Richard had been cold ever since, had declined to help with wedding planning, had made excuses not to meet Thomas more than twice, had kept his children, my grandchildren, away from me. Jennifer had been even worse. At the one family dinner we'd managed, she'd barely hidden her contempt. So Thomas, she'd said with a fake smile, what kind of business management did you do? Specifically? Various industries, Thomas had replied mildly. I've worked in technology, manufacturing, real estate, a bit of everything. And you're retired now? Semi-retired. I still consult occasionally, but mostly I'm focused on other things, volunteering, travelling, enjoying life. Must be nice, Jennifer had said, acid in her voice, not having to work, just enjoying life. Some of us don't have that luxury. Thomas had just smiled, hadn't risen to the bait, hadn't defended himself. Later, when I'd apologised for her rudeness, he'd squeezed my hand and said, It's fine, Margaret. She's protective of you. I understand. But it wasn't protectiveness. I knew that. It was something else, something darker, judgment, contempt, resentment that I'd found happiness again when I was supposed to be the lonely widow, the needy mother, the woman whose purpose was caring for grandchildren and staying conveniently available. So when Richard showed up late to the ceremony, when Jennifer smirked through the vows, when they sat in the back row instead of the front where I'd saved them seats, I should have known, should have seen it coming. But I was too happy, too in love, too hopeful that my son would eventually accept my choice, accept my happiness. The ceremony was short. Thomas and I exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. Simple promises about companionship and kindness and facing whatever came together. I cried. Thomas cried. Several guests cried. It was beautiful and honest and real. When the officiant pronounced us married, Thomas kissed me gently, whispered, "Hello, Mrs. Whitmore." And I felt something I hadn't felt in 10 years. Complete, whole, happy. The reception was at the same estate. Cocktail hour in the gardens, then dinner in the ballroom. We'd kept things elegant, but not extravagant. Thomas's preference. Good food, good wine, good music, nothing flashy, nothing ostentatious. Just a celebration of two people finding love later in life. I was greeting guests, accepting congratulations, glowing with happiness, when I heard it, Richard's voice loud enough to carry across the garden. "Look at Mum's new husband. Grey suit from Men's Warehouse, shoes from Payless. Jesus Christ, she could have done so much better." Laughter. Jennifer's distinctive cackle. "I know, right? He looks like someone's grandfather. like he should be yelling at kids to get off his lawn, not marrying a woman with money. Dad must be rolling in his grave, Richard said. Mom replacing him with some broke old man who probably can't even afford his own retirement. She's going to end up supporting him, paying his bills. It's pathetic. More laughter. Louder now. Other people joining in. Jennifer's parents, Richard's friends who'd been invited as a courtesy to my son. I stood frozen, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This was my son, my child, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved and supported and sacrificed for. And he was publicly mocking my husband, my happiness at my wedding, in front of 400 guests. Thomas appeared at my elbow, took my hand. His face was calm, unnaturally calm. "It's fine, Margaret," he said quietly. "Let them talk." "It's not fine," I whispered, voice shaking. "That's my son. That's Richard. He's showing us who he is," Thomas said. "That's valuable information. Painful, but valuable." I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. We moved toward the ballroom for dinner, tried to ignore the whispers, tried to pretend I hadn't heard my own son call my husband pathetic, tried to salvage what should have been the happiest day of my life. Dinner started well enough. The first course was served, champagne was poured. Then Richard stood up, clinked his glass. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced, voice carrying across the ballroom. 400 guests turned to listen. I felt hope flutter weakly in my chest. Maybe he was going to apologise. Maybe he was going to say something kind. Maybe to my mother, Richard said, who has made an interesting choice. Polite laughter from guests who didn't know him well, knowing smirks from those who did. "Margaret deserves happiness," Richard continued. "After Dad died, she was alone for so long. We all worried about her, worried she'd spend the rest of her life lonely. And then she met Thomas." He paused, looked directly at Thomas. His smile was cruel. "Thomas, I have to say, I didn't expect Mum to marry someone so modest, so humble, so clearly beneath her station. I mean, look at you, cheap suit, cheap shoes, driving that embarrassing Honda, working at a community centre." Gasps now. Actual gasps from guests. This wasn't a toast. This was a public humiliation. "But I guess that's fine," Richard went on. "Mum's not getting any younger. She needed someone, anyone. 0 guests witnessed what you did, Richard. Many of them are people I do business with. People who employ people you want to work with. People who now know exactly what kind of man you are, what kind of son you are, what kind of character you have." Richard's face crumpled. "You're going to destroy my career." "No," Thomas said. "You destroyed your career the moment you chose to be cruel to someone you thought had no power. That reveals more about your character than anything else could. And character matters, Richard, in business, in life, in everything. You just showed everyone yours. You'll have to live with the consequences." The security team escorted Richard's family out. Jennifer was crying, actual sobs. Richard looked like he might vomit. Jennifer's parents were silent, shell-shocked, probably realising they'd joined in mocking a billionaire and been witnessed by 400 people who mattered. The children, my grandchildren, ages 7 and 9, looked confused and frightened. They didn't understand what was happening, didn't understand why everyone was angry, why they were being forced to leave. I wanted to comfort them, wanted to pull them close and tell them it would be okay, but I couldn't move, couldn't think, was still processing. My new husband is a billionaire. He tested me. My son publicly humiliated him. My son just destroyed his own career. My wedding ended with everyone being kicked out. My family just fell apart. everything just changed. After they left, after the ballroom was empty except for security and me and Thomas, I sat down, just collapsed into a chair, stared at nothing. Thomas knelt beside me. Margaret, talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking. I don't know what I'm thinking, I said honestly. This is too much, too fast. I looked at him. This man I loved, this man I'd married 3 hours ago, this stranger. I need you to explain everything from the beginning, who you really are, why you really hid this, all of it, the truth, please. So he did. We sat in that empty ballroom, our wedding reception that had become a disaster, and Thomas told me everything. Thomas Whitmore, age 62, started his first company at 25, a small tech startup that designed software for manufacturing plants, grew it steadily, sold it at 35 for $200 million, used that money to start Whitmore Industries, a conglomerate that now owned pieces of technology companies, manufacturing plants, real estate developments and venture capital firms, employed 50,000 people across 12 countries, worth $4.2 billion personally, with the company valued at over $20 billion. He sat on boards, advised presidents, had his name on buildings and scholarships and hospital wings, was one of the most successful self-made billionaires in America, and I'd had absolutely no idea. How did I not know? I asked. How did I never see your name, never hear about you, never... I'm very private, Thomas said. Intentionally. Don't do press, don't do interviews, don't attend society events, don't put my name on buildings. Other people put it there after I donate, but I always request anonymity. I learned early that publicity attracts the wrong kind of attention. People wanting money, people seeing you as a resource, people treating you differently because of what you have instead of who you are. But your first wife knew, I said. She knew from the beginning. She did. Met her at a charity gala when I was 30. She was beautiful, charming, from a wealthy family herself, or so I thought. Turned out her family was broke, drowning in debt, maintaining appearances through credit cards and loans. She targeted me deliberately, saw me as the solution to their financial problems. Thomas's face was bitter now, old pain surfacing. I didn't realise until we'd been married a year, until her family started asking for loans that were never repaid, until she started spending compulsively, like having money meant she had to prove she had money, until I understood she didn't love me, she loved my wealth. Why did you stay married? I asked. We had children, Thomas said simply. 2 kids, daughter and son. I stayed for them, tried to make it work, tried to believe Rebecca would change, would learn to love me for me. She never did. She died when the kids were teenagers. Cancer, sudden and aggressive. I was devastated, not because I loved her anymore, but because I'd wasted 15 years trying to make someone love me who never could. Your children, I said. You said they only contact you for money. They learned from their mother, Thomas said, sad now, deeply sad. Learned that Dad was a wallet, a resource, someone who existed to fund their lifestyles. My daughter's 35 now, calls maybe once a year to complain about her trust fund, not covering her expenses, wants more money, never wants a relationship. My son's 32, same pattern. They got millions in inheritance when Rebecca died, got trust funds that pay them $500,000 annually each. And they still want more, still see me as a bank, still have never once asked how I'm doing, or if I'm happy, or if I'm lonely. The pain in his voice broke my heart. After Rebecca died, Thomas continued, I decided if I ever fell in love again, it would be real, would be based on actual connection, not money. So when I met you, he smiled slightly. When you told me I'd missed a spot on that pot I was washing, when you laughed at my terrible jokes, when you talked about your husband who died and how much you missed having someone to share your life with, when you saw me and not what I have, I fell in love, real love, for the first time in my life, real love. I was crying again, couldn't help it. This man, this complicated, damaged, wonderful man who'd been hurt so badly he'd felt the need to hide who he was just to find genuine connection. I understand why you didn't tell me. I said, I do, and I'm not angry about that. I searched for words. I'm sad that you felt you had to. Sad that people hurt you so badly you couldn't trust. Sad that your first family treated you like an ATM. And I looked at him directly. I'm sad that my son proved you right, proved that people treat you differently when they think you're poor versus rich, proved that character reveals itself when people think there are no consequences. I'm so sad about that. Thomas pulled me close, held me while I cried. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry your son showed his true colours. Sorry your wedding ended like this. Sorry you had to learn all this today. But Margaret, He pulled back, looked at me seriously. I need you to know I love you, really love you, not testing anymore, not hiding anymore. Just me loving you, wanting to spend my life making you happy. Can you accept that? Can you accept all of me, including the parts I hid? I looked at this man, my husband, this billionaire who volunteered at community centres and drove a Honda and fell in love with me over dishwashing, this complicated, genuine, good man who'd been hurt and was still brave enough to try again. Yes, I said, I can accept it. I can accept you, all of you. I love you, Thomas. The man I met at the community centre, the man who proposed in the park, the man who just revealed he's a billionaire, all of it, all of you. We kissed, there in the empty ballroom, our ruined wedding reception, our complicated beginning. And for a moment, it felt like everything might be okay, like we could survive this, like love might be enough. Then I remembered Richard, my son, who just destroyed his career and lost his mother in one catastrophic toast, who was probably at home right now, panicking, realising what he'd done, who I'd loved my entire adult life, who I'd raised and nurtured and sacrificed for, who'd just shown me he valued money more than my happiness. I need to go home, I said to Thomas, need to think, need to process. It's too much. I understand, Thomas said. We can postpone the honeymoon, can take time, whatever you need. No, I said, we should go, should take the trip, should try to salvage something from this disaster of a wedding. But first I need to go home for a few hours, need to be alone, need to think. Can you give me that? Thomas looked concerned, but nodded. Of course, take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. He kissed my forehead, called for his car, not the Honda, I noticed. A Mercedes, driver in uniform, money showing now that the secret was out. He had me driven back to my house, the house I'd shared with David, the house where I'd raised Richard, the house I'd lived in alone for 10 years, the house I'd been planning to sell after the wedding so Thomas and I could start fresh somewhere new. I went inside, sat in the living room, stared at photos on the walls, David and me on our wedding day, young, happy, naive. Richard, as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, family photos spanning 35 years, a whole life captured in frames. And I thought, how did we get here? How did my beautiful boy become a man who mocks humble people, who measures worth by wealth, who humiliates his mother at her wedding? Where did I go wrong? What did I miss? What did I fail to teach him? The aftermath, my phone started ringing an hour after I got home. Richard, I didn't answer. He called 6 more times, left voicemails. Mom, please pick up. I need to talk to you. I need to explain. Please. I listened to them all, heard the panic, the desperation, the fear, but I didn't call back. Didn't know what to say. Jennifer called next, her voice shaky, crying, Margaret, I'm so sorry. We're so sorry. We didn't know. We didn't understand. Please, we need to fix this. Richard's career is falling apart. People are already calling, already asking questions, already distancing themselves. Please, you have to help us. Even if it's an old man who can't even afford a decent wedding gift for his own bride. He laughed, his friends laughed. Jennifer cackled. So, here's to Thomas, Richard said, raising his glass. The stepfather we never wanted. The loser who somehow convinced our mother to marry him. May you enjoy spending her money. May you live comfortably off my father's life insurance. May you... He never finished. Because that's when the men in suits arrived. 6 of them, black suits, earpieces, moving with military precision through the ballroom. They didn't announce themselves, didn't ask permission. They simply began clearing the venue. "Excuse me," one said politely to a table of guests. "We need you to exit the premises. Now, please." "What? Why? Who are you?" "Security. This event is concluded. Please gather your belongings and exit immediately." Chaos erupted. Guests confused, alarmed, gathering purses and jackets, muttering about rudeness and what kind of wedding ends like this. Richard stood frozen, champagne glass still raised, face shifting from smug satisfaction to confusion to panic. Jennifer grabbed his arm. "What's happening, Richard? What's happening?" "Oh, I don't know," he said, but he was staring at the security team, staring at Thomas, staring at the way the men positioned themselves protectively around us, around me and Thomas, as if we were someone important, someone who needed protection. The ballroom cleared in less than 10 minutes. 400 guests ushered out firmly but politely until only a handful remained. Me and Thomas, Richard, Jennifer, and their 2 children. Jennifer's parents, the security team, and silence, terrible, crushing silence. Richard's face had gone white, actually white. "Mom," he said, voice shaking now. "What's going on? Who are these people?" I didn't answer. Didn't know what to say. Looked at Thomas. Thomas, my humble, modest, unassuming husband, looked at my son with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, assessing, disappointed. "Richard," Thomas said quietly, "I'd like to introduce myself properly. I'm Thomas Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Industries, net worth approximately $4.2 billion, your stepfather, and the man you just publicly humiliated in front of 400 guests, many of whom are my business associates, friends, and board members." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattered on the marble floor. Jennifer made a sound like all the air had been punched from her lungs. "What?" Richard whispered. "What did you just say?" "I'm a billionaire," Thomas said calmly. "Have been for 30 years. Built my company from nothing. Employ 50,000 people globally. Sit on the boards of 6 Fortune 500 companies. And I met your mother while volunteering at a community centre. because I believe in giving back, because I believe in staying humble, because I don't define myself by wealth. He paused. Let that sink in. I didn't tell Margaret about my money, Thomas continued. Wanted to make sure she loved me for who I am, not what I have. She passed that test beautifully, loved me when she thought I was nobody, chose me when she thought I had nothing, proved her heart was genuine. His eyes, those warm brown eyes that had looked at me with such love, were now cold as ice as he looked at Richard. You, however, Thomas said softly, failed spectacularly. You showed your mother and everyone here exactly who you are, someone who values money over character, who judges people by their clothes and cars, who mocks humble people as losers, who humiliates his own mother at her wedding because you decided her husband wasn't wealthy enough. Richard was shaking now. I didn't know. And that, Thomas said, is precisely the problem. You didn't know. And because you didn't know I was rich, you felt free to be cruel, to be vicious. You revealed your true character. And now you have to live with the consequences. The revelation. Richard stumbled backward. Actually stumbled like his legs wouldn't hold him. Jennifer caught his arm, her own face sheet white, eyes wide with horror. Thomas, I said, voice barely a whisper. What's happening? What's Whitmore Industries? What? I'm sorry, Margaret, Thomas said, turning to me. His expression softened, became gentle again, became the man I knew. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was going to, after the wedding, was going to explain everything, but I needed to know. He trailed off, looked at Richard. Needed to know if your family loved you for you, or if they'd treat you differently if they thought I had money. Now I know. My head was spinning. Thomas Whitmore, CEO, billionaire. The man I'd been married to for less than 3 hours was one of the wealthiest people in the country, and I'd had no idea. No idea. You lied to me, I said, not angry, just confused, hurt, lost. I simplified, Thomas said carefully. Everything I told you was true. I do volunteer. I do believe in living modestly. I do drive a Honda because I don't care about flashy cars. I just left out the part about the company, about the money, because I needed to know you wouldn't change, wouldn't become someone different if you knew. I wouldn't have. I know that now, Thomas interrupted gently. I know because you didn't, because you loved me when you thought I was nobody, because you chose me despite your son's objections. Despite his concerns about money, you proved yourself, Margaret, proved your heart was pure. He squeezed my hand. I'm sorry I tested you, but I had to know. After my first marriage, I had to know. First marriage. He'd mentioned it briefly, said his wife had died 15 years ago, that he'd been alone since then. But he'd never given details, never explained. Your first wife? I asked. She married me for money, Thomas said, flat voice, old pain underneath. I was already wealthy when we met, already successful. She knew exactly who I was and what I was worth, married me for access to that wealth. Her family encouraged it. They saw me as a resource, an ATM, someone to fund their lifestyles. He paused, looked away. When she died, cancer 12 years ago, her family's first question wasn't about grief or funerals. It was about the will, about inheritance, about whether they'd still have access to money now that she was gone. My own children from that marriage. He stopped, swallowed hard. My 2 kids only contact me when they need money. Haven't seen them in years, except when they show up asking for loans or complaining their trust funds aren't big enough. They don't love me, they love my wallet. I felt tears building, understanding now why he'd done this, why he'd hidden, why he'd tested. After that, Thomas continued, I decided if I ever fell in love again, I'd make sure it was real, make sure the person loved me, not Thomas Whitmore, the billionaire, just Thomas, the man. So when I met you, when we started talking over dishes at that community centre, when you made me laugh for the first time in years, I kept quiet, kept living simply, kept being just Thomas, and you fell in love with that, with who I actually am, not what I have. He cupped my face. You passed every test, Margaret, every single one. You're genuine, you're real, you love me. That's more valuable than anything money can buy. I was crying now, understanding, but also overwhelmed, also angry. You still lied, I said. You still tested me without my knowledge. That's not honest, Thomas. You're right, he said immediately. You're absolutely right. I should have told you sooner, should have trusted you sooner. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but Margaret... He turned back to Richard. At least we both learned the truth about each other and about your son. Richard had been standing frozen during this entire exchange, watching, listening, processing. Now he stepped forward, hands raised pleadingly. Mr. Whitmore, Thomas, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I'd known who you were, I never would have. And that, Thomas interrupted coldly, is the problem, Richard. If you'd known I was rich, you would have been respectful, polite, welcoming, but because you thought I was poor, you felt free to mock me, to humiliate your mother, to reveal exactly what kind of person you are underneath the polite social mask. I made a mistake, Richard said desperately. A terrible mistake. But I can fix this. I can apologise. You can leave, Thomas said, not shouting, not emotional, just cold, final. You can take your wife and her family and go. You're not welcome at this wedding. You're not welcome in our lives. Not after what you've done, not after what you've shown us. Mum, Richard turned to me, tears in his eyes now, real tears. Mum, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was cruel. You were honest, I said quietly. Found my voice, found my spine. You showed me what you really think, what you really believe, that people's worth is measured by their bank accounts, that modest people are losers, that I should be ashamed of loving someone who drives a Honda. You showed me who you are, Richard. I'm your son, he said, voice breaking. I'm your son. You can't just cut me out. You cut yourself out, I said. The moment you stood up to give that toast, the moment you called my husband pathetic, the moment you chose cruelty over kindness, you chose this, Richard, not me. Jennifer was pulling on Richard's arm now. We need to go. We need to leave. Now. Wait, Richard said, looking at Thomas now, panic in his eyes. I work in finance, corporate finance. Whitmore Industries is... You're connected to everyone, every major bank, every investment firm, every... He stopped, realisation dawning. If word gets out that I insulted you, that I humiliated you at your wedding, Word is already out, Thomas said simply. Knowing my family was broken, knowing my wedding had become a viral video that millions of people were mocking. I need more time, I said finally. Need to think, need to figure out what I can live with. I'll call you when I'm ready. Please, just give me space. Of course, Thomas said. Take all the time you need. I love you, Margaret. That hasn't changed. won't change. Whatever you decide, I love you. We hung up, and I sat alone. Again, always alone now, isolated from my son, distant from my husband, caught between two people I loved, unable to choose, unable to move. The next few weeks were horrible. Richard lost his job officially, was let go due to restructuring, which everyone knew meant we can't be associated with the guy from that video. Jennifer filed for divorce, took the kids, got a restraining order claiming Richard was emotionally unstable after he'd allegedly yelled at her about how everything was falling apart. Richard's friends stopped calling, his professional network evaporated, his LinkedIn connections dropped from 2,000 to 400 in 2 weeks. As people distanced themselves, he called me daily, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes just broken. I lost everything, Mom. Everything, my job, my wife, my kids, my career, all because of one stupid toast, one moment of cruelty, and now it's permanent, forever online, forever attached to my name. I can't escape it, can't fix it, can't do anything. I listened, didn't know what to say, wanted to comfort him, but also knew he'd done this to himself, had chosen cruelty, had shown his true character, was facing the consequences of his own choices. Meanwhile, Thomas kept his distance, called daily to check on me but didn't push, didn't demand I make a decision, didn't pressure me to choose, just waited, patient, understanding, good, the way he'd always been, the man I'd fallen in love with, the man who'd also tested me without my knowledge and triggered this entire disaster. 1 month after the wedding, I finally visited Thomas, went to his actual house, not the modest apartment he'd pretended to live in, but his real house, an estate in Westchester, 15 acres, mansion with 12 bedrooms, staff, security, wealth on full display now that the secret was out. He greeted me at the door, looked nervous, vulnerable. "Thank you for coming," he said. I've missed you. "I've missed you too," I said honestly. "But I need to know something, Thomas. I need to understand. Was it worth it? The test, the destruction, everything that's happened? Was it worth destroying my son's life to prove he had bad character?" Thomas was quiet for a long time. Then, "I don't know. Honestly, Margaret, I don't know. I wanted to know if your family was genuine, if they'd love you regardless of my wealth. Richard proved they wouldn't. Proved he valued money over your happiness. That was important information. But the cost," he trailed off. "The cost might have been too high. I didn't intend for it to go viral, didn't intend to destroy his life quite this thoroughly. I just wanted truth, wanted to know who people really were. Maybe that was selfish, maybe that was cruel, maybe I'm not as good a person as I thought I was." I looked at him. This complicated man, this damaged man who'd been hurt so badly he felt the need to test everyone, who'd created a situation that destroyed my son, who'd been honest about his motivations but not his identity, who I loved despite everything. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said quietly, "for the test, for not trusting me enough to just tell me the truth, for creating the situation that destroyed Richard. I don't know if I can get past that." "I understand," Thomas said, "and if you can't, if you want to annul the marriage, if you want to leave, I'll understand. I'll let you go. Won't fight it. You deserve someone who trusts you completely, who doesn't test, who doesn't cause this kind of pain. If that's not me, I accept that. We stood there in his mansion, surrounded by wealth, surrounded by everything he'd hidden from me, and I had to decide, could I forgive him? Could I accept what he'd done? Could I build a marriage on this foundation of tests and lies and destruction? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. Not yet. The deeper truth. I stayed at Thomas's estate that night in a guest room, keeping distance, keeping space, needing time. We had dinner together, quiet, tentative, both of us careful with our words, careful with each other, walking on eggshells around the damage we'd caused, the damage Thomas had caused, the damage Richard had revealed. It was complicated, messy, impossible. After dinner, Thomas asked if I wanted to see his study. There's something I want to show you, he said, something that might help you understand why I did what I did, why I'm so, he searched for words, so damaged about trust and money and family. I followed him to a room on the second floor, lined with bookshelves, dark wood, leather chairs, elegant and masculine and wealthy in a way that still felt strange, still felt like I was in a stranger's house rather than my husband's home. Thomas pulled out a box from a cabinet. Old photos, letters, documents. My first marriage, he said, the full story. I want you to see it, want you to understand. He spread the photos out. Thomas at 30, young and handsome and happy, standing next to a beautiful blonde woman, Rebecca, their wedding photo, smiling, looking like any other couple in love. I met her at a charity gala, Thomas said. I'd just sold my first company, had $200 million, was being featured in business magazines as the next big tech entrepreneur. I was young and stupid and visible, and Rebecca's family saw me coming from a mile away. He pulled out more photos. Rebecca's family, father, mother, 2 siblings, all dressed expensively, all beautiful, all looking like old money. They presented themselves as wealthy, Thomas continued. Established New York family, connections, society. Rebecca seemed perfect, educated, cultured, charming. I fell hard. Married her 6 months after we met. He pulled out documents now, financial records. What I didn't know, her family was broke, completely broke, living on credit cards and loans and maintaining appearances through debt. Her father's business had failed years ago. They were drowning, and I was their lifeboat. More documents, loan requests from Rebecca's father, money transfers to her siblings, credit card statements showing massive spending by Rebecca herself. Within a year, I'd loaned her family over $2 million, Thomas said. None of it repaid. Rebecca was spending $50,000 a month on clothes, jewellery, trips. When I questioned it, she'd cry, say I was being controlling, say if I really loved her, I wouldn't care about money, say her family needed help and I was cruel for resenting it. He pulled out a letter, his handwriting. I wrote this to Rebecca 5 years into our marriage, Thomas said. Never sent it, but I want you to read it. I took the letter, read, Rebecca, I don't know if you ever loved me. I suspect you didn't. Suspect you saw a wealthy man and decided he was your family's solution. I was too naive to see it, too young to understand, too in love to question. But now I understand. You don't ask about my day, don't ask about my work, don't care about my thoughts or dreams or fears. You care about my money, about what I can buy, what I can provide, what I can fund. Your family treats me like an ATM. Your siblings call only when they need loans. Your parents ask for investments in businesses that never materialise. You spend without limits because you never earned the money, never understood its value, never had to work for anything. I'm not a husband to you. I'm a resource. And I don't know if I can keep living like this. Keep funding a family that doesn't love me. Keep being married to a woman who sees me as a wallet. But we have children. 2 beautiful kids who deserve a stable home. So I'll stay. I'll keep funding your family, keep letting you spend, keep being the ATM. Because that's what fathers do. They sacrifice, they endure, they stay. But I want you to know I know what you are, what your family is, what this marriage really is. And I'll never trust anyone with money again. Never believe someone loves me rather than what I have. Never be naive enough to think wealth doesn't change everything. You taught me that. Thank you for the lesson. I finished reading, looked up at Thomas. He was crying silently. I stayed for 15 years. He said, for the kids, because I thought that's what good fathers did. But Rebecca never changed, never learned to love me. Died when the kids were teenagers. And my first thought, after the grief, after the shock, was relief. Relief that I didn't have to keep pretending anymore, keep funding her endless spending, keep being used. That's terrible, isn't it? To feel relieved your wife died? No, I said quietly. It's human. You were trapped in a loveless marriage. Anyone would feel relieved to escape that. After she died, Thomas continued, I tried to connect with my kids, tried to build real relationships, but they'd learned from their mother, learned that Dad was money. When my daughter turned 18, her first request was for a new car, $100,000 BMW. When I suggested something more modest, she said, why are you being cheap? You're a billionaire. My son was the same. Wanted a penthouse apartment at 21 when I said he should work for a few years first, save up. He said, why should I work when you have more money than anyone could spend? They didn't want a father, wanted a bank. You have to talk to Thomas. You have to. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it, blocked her number, couldn't listen to her excuses, her manipulation, her focus on Richard's career instead of his character, instead of the cruelty he'd shown, instead of the pain he'd caused. Then my phone exploded, text messages, dozens of them, from friends who'd been at the wedding, from acquaintances, from people I barely knew. Margaret, what happened? Why did everyone get kicked out? Is it true Thomas is a billionaire? OMG. I can't believe Richard said those things. So embarrassing. Your son just committed career suicide. Everyone's talking about it. Thomas Whitmore. You married Thomas Whitmore and didn't tell anyone. On and on. Question after question. Gossip and shock and judgment and curiosity. I turned my phone off, sat in silence, tried to process. My son had publicly humiliated my husband. My husband was secretly a billionaire who'd been testing me. My wedding had ended with everyone being forcibly removed. My family had imploded. Everything had changed in 3 hours. Everything. I wanted David, wanted my first husband, wanted the man who'd known me for 30 years, who'd been Richard's father, who would have known what to do, how to handle this, how to fix this. But David was gone, had been gone for 10 years, and I was alone with this impossible situation, alone with choices I didn't know how to make. That night, around 11 p.m, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole. Richard, alone, looking destroyed, haggard, like he'd aged 10 years in 8 hours. I opened the door. Mum, he said, voice breaking, please let me explain. Let me apologise. Let me come in. I said, couldn't turn him away. He was my son, my child. No matter what he'd done, I couldn't leave him standing on my porch, looking broken. He came in, sat on the couch where he'd sat 1,000 times growing up, looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm so sorry," he said. "Mum, I'm so sorry. I was cruel. I was wrong. Why?" I interrupted. "Why did you do it, Richard? Why did you mock him? Mock me at my wedding in front of 400 people? Why?" Richard's face crumpled. "I was angry," he said, "at you, at him, at everything. You were so happy, so excited about this wedding, about Thomas, and I couldn't stand it." "Why not?" I asked. "Why couldn't you stand me being happy?" "Because Dad's gone," Richard said, started crying now, actually sobbing. "Dad's gone, and you replaced him. You found someone new, you moved on, and I still can't. I'm still angry that he died, still angry that he left us, still angry at you for letting him die." "Letting him die?" I stared at him. "Richard, your father had a heart attack, a massive sudden heart attack. There was nothing I could do." "You should have made him go to the doctor," Richard said, voice rising, irrational now, grief irrational. He complained about chest pain for weeks. "You should have forced him to get checked. Should have." "I tried," I said. "I begged him. He said he was fine, said it was just stress, said he'd go after his next big project finished. He never did. And then he died. And I've lived with that guilt for 10 years, Richard. 10 years of wondering if I could have saved him, if I should have done more, if I failed him." "You did fail him," Richard said, cruel now, lashing out. "You let him die, and then you replaced him with some old man, some random guy you barely knew, He stopped, realised what he was saying, how he sounded. "I didn't know he was a billionaire," Richard continued quieter now. "I thought he was nobody, thought he was some broke old man taking advantage of you, taking advantage of Dad's life insurance money. I was trying to protect you." "By humiliating me?" I asked. "By mocking the man I chose to marry? By giving a toast that was designed to hurt? That was protection." "I was angry," Richard repeated. "I've been angry for 10 years, and you were so happy, so in love, so ready to move on. And I thought if I made you see who Thomas really was, some loser, some nobody, you'd realise you were making a mistake. You'd end it. You'd come back to us, to me." "I never left you," I said. "You left me, Richard. After your father died, you visited for a year, then stopped. You had your own life, your own family. You didn't need me anymore. So I built a new life, found new purpose, found new love. That wasn't replacing your father. That was surviving. That was choosing not to be alone forever." Richard was silent, staring at his hands. "I destroyed everything," he said finally. "Didn't I? My relationship with you, my career, Jennifer's respect. She's barely speaking to me. She's talking about divorce, about taking the kids, about how I've embarrassed her family. Everything's falling apart. Because you showed everyone who you really are," I said, not cruel, just honest. "You showed that you judge people by their wealth, that you mock people you think are beneath you, that you value money more than character, that you'd humiliate your own mother to prove a point. That's who you are, Richard. And now people know. Now there are consequences." "I'm not that person," Richard said desperately. "I'm not. I was just angry, just hurt, just honest," I interrupted. "You were honest about what you really think, what you really value, and now you have to live with that." Can you fix it? Richard asked, looking at me with desperate eyes. Can you talk to Thomas? Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I didn't mean it. Get him to, I don't know, tell people it was a misunderstanding. My career is over, Mom, over. 3 people have already called to tell me not to come back to work, that they're restructuring my position. Everyone knows what I did. Everyone knows I insulted Thomas Whitmore at his wedding. I'm radioactive. No one will hire me. No one will touch me. Maybe that's what you deserve, I said, harsh but true. Maybe losing your career is the consequence of showing your true character, of being cruel to someone you thought had no power. But I didn't know he had power, Richard said. If I'd known... And that's the problem, I said loudly, frustrated now. If you'd known Thomas was rich, you would have been respectful, kind, welcoming. But because you thought he was poor, you felt free to mock him. That reveals everything about your character, Richard. Everything. You treat people differently based on their wealth. That's who you are. And I don't know if I can forgive that. Don't know if I can look at you the same way. Don't know if we can fix this. Richard stood up, looked lost, broken. What do I do? He asked. What do I do, Mum? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't have answers. Don't know how to fix this. Don't know if it can be fixed. You need to leave, Richard. I need time, need space, need to figure out what I want, what I can live with. Just go. Please, just go. He left, shoulders slumped, defeated, looking like a man who'd lost everything in one catastrophically bad decision. And I sat alone in my house, in the dark, and cried. For my son, for my marriage, for the impossible situation I was in, for everything that had been broken in one terrible day. The next morning, I woke to find I'd gone viral. Someone had recorded Richard's toast, had posted it on social media, and it had exploded. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Imagine mocking someone at their wedding and finding out they're a billionaire. This is the most satisfying karma I've ever seen. That guy's career is done. No one's hiring him after this. The mum deserves better. The son is trash. This is what happens when you judge people by their appearance instead of their character. On and on. Richard's humiliation was now public, permanent, viral. His name, his actual name, was attached to the video. His LinkedIn was being flooded with comments. His professional reputation was being destroyed in real time by millions of strangers. I felt sick watching this happen, watching my son become a cautionary tale, a meme, a joke. Yes, he'd been cruel. Yes, he'd deserved consequences. But this level of public destruction, this permanent stain on his life, did he deserve that? I didn't know, couldn't decide, was torn between mother love and righteous anger, between wanting to protect my child and knowing he'd brought this on himself. Thomas called. "Have you seen the video?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know someone was recording, didn't plan for this to go public. This is more than I intended." "What did you intend?" I asked, not accusing, genuinely asking. "I intended to test your family," Thomas said honestly. "See if they'd treat you well, regardless of my apparent status." Richard failed that test spectacularly. I was going to have security remove them, yes. Was going to tell them the truth, was going to make it clear they'd misjudged me. But I didn't intend for millions of people to see it. Didn't intend to destroy Richard's career quite this thoroughly. "But you're not sorry he's facing consequences," I said. "No," Thomas admitted. "I'm not. He showed cruelty. He deserves consequences. I'm just sorry it's become this public. Sorry you have to watch your son be destroyed online. That's not fair to you." "Nothing about this is fair," I said. "Not to me, not to Richard, not to anyone. This is a disaster, Thomas, a complete disaster." "I know," he said quietly, "and I'm sorry, but Margaret, we can still have a good marriage, can still build a good life, can still be happy. If you want that, if you can accept what happened and move forward, can you?" I didn't answer, couldn't answer, didn't know what I wanted anymore, didn't know if happiness was possible after this level of destruction, didn't know if I could be happy knowing my son had lost everything. "So, I'm going to offer you the same thing, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but possibility." "What does that mean?" Richard asked, voice shaking. "It means I'll pay for your treatment," Thomas said. "Inpatient care, therapy, whatever you need to get better. Not because you deserve it, not because I forgive you, but because your mother loves you, and I love your mother, and I won't watch her son destroy himself if I can prevent it." Tears were streaming down Richard's face now. "Why? Why would you do that after what I did to you?" "Because people can change," Thomas said. "If they want to, if they do the work, I'm giving you the chance to prove you can. Don't waste it." Richard spent 45 days in inpatient treatment, intensive therapy, processing his father's death, processing his guilt, processing the grief and anger that had been eating him alive for a decade. I visited twice a week, sat with him, talked, listened. He told me things he'd never said before about how angry he'd been at David for dying, at me for letting him die, at himself for the argument they'd had, about how he'd sublimated that anger into resentment of Thomas, into judgment, into cruelty. "I was hurting," he said, "and I took it out on you, on Thomas, on everyone, because it was easier to be angry at you than to deal with the grief, easier to blame you than to accept that Dad just died, that it wasn't anyone's fault, that it was just terrible luck, easier to judge Thomas than to admit I was jealous of your happiness, jealous that you'd moved on when I couldn't. You can move on too," I said. "You can heal. You can be happy again. But you have to do the work, Richard. Have to really change. Not just say you will, actually do it." "I'm trying," he said. "I'm really trying, Mom." When Richard was released, Thomas did something unexpected. He offered Richard a job, not at Whitmore Industries. That would have been too much, too public, but at a small consulting firm Thomas owned. Entry-level analyst position, $55,000 a year, real work, real expectations, real accountability. "This is not charity," Thomas told Richard at their meeting. "This is a job. You'll be expected to perform, to work hard, to prove yourself. You won't get special treatment because you're my stepson. If anything, you'll be held to higher standards. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Richard said, respectful now, humble, changed, or at least starting to change. "And Richard," Thomas continued, "your co-workers won't know about the wedding, won't know about the viral video, won't know our history. You'll have a clean slate. Don't waste it. Don't let them down. Don't let yourself down. Prove you can be better than you were." Richard took the job, started at the bottom, worked 60-hour weeks, showed up early, stayed late, volunteered for every project. His supervisor reported back to Thomas. "He's good, really good, works harder than anyone else, doesn't complain, seems hungry, like he's trying to prove something." "He is," Thomas said. "Let him." Jennifer divorced Richard officially, took primary custody of the children, but agreed to supervised visitation after Richard completed therapy. The first time he saw his kids after 6 months, Richard cried, held them and apologised for scaring them, for letting them down, for being someone they couldn't be proud of. "I'm going to be better," he told them, "going to be the dad you deserve. It's going to take time, but I'm going to try. I promise I'm going to try." His kids, wary, confused, but still loving because children love their parents even when those parents fail, hugged him back. "Okay, Daddy," his daughter said, "we'll try too." It was something. Not reconciliation, not repair, but something. A start, a possibility. Meanwhile, Thomas and I were building our life. Real life this time. Honest life. I'd moved into his estate. Still felt strange sometimes, waking up in a mansion, having staff, living with wealth I'd never experienced before. But I was adjusting, learning, accepting. We'd gone on our honeymoon, delayed by 6 months, but finally taken. 2 weeks in Italy, away from drama and family and consequences, just us, talking, laughing, reconnecting, rebuilding what had been broken by the wedding disaster. "Do you regret marrying me?" Thomas asked one night. We were in Tuscany, sitting on a terrace overlooking vineyards, drinking wine under stars. After everything that happened, all the pain, all the damage, do you regret it? "No," I said honestly. "I regret how it happened, regret the test, regret what it cost Richard, but I don't regret you, don't regret us. We're messy and complicated and damaged, but we're real, and I'll take real and messy over comfortable lies any day." Thomas kissed me. "I love you, Margaret Whitmore. Every day I love you more." "I love you too," I said, "even when you test me, even when you make everything complicated, even when you're difficult and damaged and impossible. I love you." We laughed because it was true, because we were difficult and damaged, because somehow, improbably, impossibly, we'd made it work. 1 year after the wedding, we had a small dinner at our house, me, Thomas, Richard and Richard's children. Not Jennifer. She'd moved on, was dating someone else, was happy-ish in her new life, but the rest of us, the family that had survived. Richard was different now, quieter, more thoughtful, more humble. He'd been in therapy for a year, had been working at Thomas's consulting firm, had been rebuilding his relationship with his kids, had been slowly and painfully becoming someone better. During dinner, he stood up. "I want to say something," he said. We all looked at him, waited. "A year ago, I made the worst mistake of my life," Richard began. "I publicly humiliated Mom and Thomas at their wedding. I showed everyone the ugliest parts of my character, the judgment, the cruelty, the values I'm not proud of. And I faced consequences, lost my job, lost my marriage, lost almost everything." He paused, looked at Thomas. "But you gave me a chance, gave me possibility, gave me a way forward when I deserved nothing. And I want to say thank you, not just for the job or the therapy or the help, but for teaching me something my father tried to teach me that I never learned. Character matters more than wealth. How you treat people matters more than how much you have, and people can change if they're willing to do the work." He turned to me. "Mum, I'm sorry for what I did, for what I said, for hurting you on what should have been the happiest day of your life. I can't take it back, can't undo it, but I can be better, can become better, and I'm trying. Every day I'm trying." I was crying. Thomas was crying. Even the kids looked emotional, sensing this was important even if they didn't fully understand. "I'm proud of you," I said to Richard. "So proud. Not because everything's fixed, it's not, but because you're trying. because you're doing the work, because you're becoming the man I always knew you could be." Richard smiled. Genuine smile. First one I'd seen in a year. We finished dinner, played with the kids, laughed, connected, like a family again. Not the same family we'd been before. That family was gone, but a new family, built on truth and hard work and change. After Richard left with the kids, Thomas and I sat on our terrace, similar to that night in Tuscany, except we were home now, in our life, our messy, complicated, beautiful life. "Do you think he'll make it?" I asked. "Richard, do you think he'll really change? Or will he backslide when things get hard?" "I don't know," Thomas said honestly. "Change is hard. Sustained change is harder. But he's trying. That's what matters. And we'll be here, supporting him, holding him accountable, giving him chances while also maintaining boundaries. That's what family does. We show up, we try, we love, even when it's hard." I leaned against him. "How did you get so wise?" 62 years of making mistakes," Thomas said, "and finding someone who loved me anyway. That helps." We sat in silence, comfortable silence, the kind that comes from really knowing someone, really accepting them. "Thank you," I said, "for giving Richard a chance, for helping me keep my family, for being the kind of man who could have destroyed my son completely, but chose mercy instead. That's who you are, Thomas, not the test, not the billionaire, but the man who chooses mercy. I love that man." "I love you too," Thomas said, "and your complicated son, and our messy family, and this life we're building, all of it, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts, because they make us who we are." 2 years after the wedding, Richard was promoted at the consultant firm, not because of Thomas, because he'd earned it, had proven himself, had become someone his colleagues respected, someone clients wanted to work with, someone good. Jennifer remarried, invited Richard to the wedding. A gesture of closure, of moving forward, he went, stood in the back, watched her marry someone else, and felt relief, genuine relief that she was happy, that she'd found someone better suited to her, that they'd both moved on. His relationship with his kids improved. Supervised visitation became unsupervised. Every other weekend became weekly. Distance became connection. They still had work to do, years of work, but they were doing it together. Richard started dating again, cautiously, openly telling potential partners about his past, about the viral video, about the mistakes he'd made. "If you're going to judge me by my worst moment," he'd say, "that's fair. But if you're willing to see who I'm becoming, who I'm trying to be, then maybe we can build something." Some women left, some stayed. One, a therapist named Angela, who understood complicated pasts and difficult growth, stayed long enough to matter, long enough to become serious. 3 years after the wedding, Thomas and I celebrated our anniversary, the real one, the day we actually got married, even though the wedding had been a disaster. We had a party, small this time, 50 people, close friends, Thomas's business associates who'd become genuine friends. My book club, our lives intertwined now, shared, real. Richard came, brought Angela, brought his kids, gave a toast. This time, actually a toast. Loving, grateful, real. 3 years ago, I stood up at this wedding and showed the world my worst self, Richard said. Showed cruelty and judgment and ugly values. Showed who I was when I thought there were no consequences, and there were consequences, severe ones, career-ending ones. I deserved them, But Thomas and Mum gave me something I didn't deserve. Possibility, the chance to change, the chance to be better. And I've spent 3 years trying to earn that gift, trying to become someone they can be proud of, someone I can be proud of. So this toast is really a thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for showing me that character matters more than wealth, that how you treat people matters more than how much you have. That family means showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I love you both and I'm grateful. Every day I'm grateful. The room applauded. Some people, the ones who'd been at the original wedding, who'd witnessed the disaster, had tears in their eyes, watching this redemption arc, this transformation, this proof that people can change. After the party, after everyone left, I found an envelope on my pillow. Old stationery, elegant handwriting, Thomas's, a letter. I opened it, read, "My dearest Margaret, 3 years ago, I tested you. I tested your family. I created a situation that revealed truth, but also caused immense pain. I've regretted that test every day since. Not because the test wasn't valuable, it showed me who people really were, including Richard's worst self, but because it hurt you, because it cost your son so much, because it created pain that took years to heal. I'm sorry for that. Deeply, genuinely sorry, but I'm not sorry for marrying you, not sorry for finding you at that community centre, not sorry for falling in love with the kindest, most genuine woman I've ever known. You've taught me something important, that tests aren't necessary if you choose to trust, that love means accepting people fully, even when they're complicated, even when their families are messy, even when things are hard. You've shown me how to be better, how to be more than my wealth, how to be more than my past damage, how to be the man you deserve. Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for believing our love was worth fighting for even when everything was falling apart. Thank you for being the partner I didn't know I needed and the love I didn't know was possible. I love you, Margaret Whitmore. Today, tomorrow, always. Yours completely, Thomas. I cried reading it. Cried because it was beautiful. Cried because it was true. Cried because we'd survived, had thrived, had built something real from disaster. That night, lying in bed next to my husband, I thought about the journey, about the wedding that ended in humiliation, about the test that revealed truth, about the son who'd fallen and was slowly climbing back up, about the family that had broken and was painstakingly healing, about the love that had survived, all of it. It wasn't a fairy tale, wasn't perfect, wasn't easy, but it was real. And real was better than any fantasy, better than any comfortable lie, better than any version of life where I'd stayed ignorant, stayed silent, stayed safe. I'd chosen truth, chosen Thomas, chosen the messy, complicated reality of loving damaged people and being damaged myself and building something beautiful from all that brokenness, and I'd do it again. Would make the same choice, would choose real over comfortable every single time, because that's what love is. Choosing someone even when it's hard, choosing family even when they fail, choosing possibility even when the odds are terrible, choosing hope even when everything looks hopeless. Thomas stirred beside me. "Can't sleep," he murmured. "Just thinking," I said, "about how lucky I am, how lucky we are, how grateful I am for all of it, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts." "Me too," Thomas said, pulled me close. "Me too, Margaret, me too." 6 months later, on a random Tuesday, Richard stopped by our house. Unexpected visit. He looked nervous. I have something to tell you, he said. Angela and I are getting married. Small wedding. Just family and close friends. And I wanted to ask, he looked at Thomas, would you walk me down the aisle? Would you be the father figure I need, the one I never learned to be from Dad because I was too young and stupid? Would you do that for me? Thomas looked stunned, honoured, moved. Richard, yes, of course, I'd be honoured. They hugged. Awkward man hug, but real, genuine, earned. I watched them and thought, this is redemption. This is healing. This is what it looks like when people do the work, face their demons, become better. It's not perfect, not complete, but it's something. It's enough. Richard's wedding was beautiful, small, intimate, honest. When Thomas walked him down the aisle, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everyone there knew the history, knew the disaster, knew the journey, and everyone was witnessing. Transformation is possible. Change is real. People can become better if they're willing to try. Angela said her vows. Richard said his. They promised partnership and honesty and working through hard things together. They promised to build something real, something lasting, something good. And I believed them, believed they'd make it, believed Richard had finally learned what his father tried to teach him, what Thomas had shown him. Character matters, how you treat people matters, love matters more than wealth. Those lessons had cost Richard everything, but he'd learned them, had internalized them, had become someone who lived them. That was enough. That was everything. Sitting at Richard's wedding, holding Thomas's hand, watching my son start a new chapter, I thought about my own wedding 3.5 years ago. The disaster, the humiliation, the revelation, everything that had happened since, the pain and growth and healing and change. Would I do it differently if I could? Would I skip the test, avoid the disaster, protect Richard from consequences? No, because the pain led to growth. The disaster led to truth. The consequences led to change. Without all of it, without Thomas's test, without Richard's cruelty, without the viral video and the lost job and the rock bottom, Richard would still be the man who judged people by wealth, who mocked humble people, who valued money over character. That man needed to be destroyed. So this man, the one marrying Angela, the one who'd done the work, the one who'd changed, could emerge. Sometimes love means letting people fall, letting them face consequences, letting them hit bottom so they can build themselves back up stronger. Thomas had done that for Richard, had let him fall, but also caught him before he broke completely, had given him possibility alongside accountability, had shown him you can be better, but you have to work for it. That was the greatest gift. Not the money, not the job, but the belief that change was possible, the insistence that Richard could become someone better, the patience to wait while he did the work. That's what I loved most about Thomas. Not his wealth, not his success, but his belief in people's capacity to change, his willingness to give chances, his patience with broken things, with broken people, including me, including himself, including Richard. We were all broken in our own ways, all damaged, all complicated, but we were trying. We were showing up. We were doing the work, and somehow, improbably, impossibly, we were becoming a family. Not the family I'd had before, not the family I'd imagined, but this family, built on truth and hard work and mercy and love, this messy, complicated, beautiful family. It was enough. It was everything. It was real. and real was all that mattered. He pulled out more recent documents, text messages from his children. I read, "Dad, I need 50K. Had some unexpected expenses. Can you transfer by Friday? Why did you only put 500K in my trust this year? That's not enough to live on. I don't understand why you're making me ask for money. You're literally a billionaire. Just give me what I need. If you really loved me, you'd help, but you're selfish. Always have been." On and on. Demands, entitlement, no love, no connection, just money. "They haven't visited in 3 years, Thomas said. Haven't called except to ask for money. Haven't asked how I'm doing or if I'm lonely or if I'm happy. They're in their 30s now, have their own lives, and I'm just the person who funds those lives. That's all I am to them. That's all I ever was." I understood now. Understood completely why he tested me, why he'd hidden his wealth, why he'd needed to know I loved him and not his money, because everyone else in his life had proven they loved the money, only the money, always the money. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry you went through that. Sorry your wife used you. Sorry your children don't know who you really are. Sorry you've been so hurt that you felt the need to test me." "Do you forgive me?" Thomas asked. "For the test, for hiding, for creating the situation with Richard." I thought about it, really thought. "I'm trying," I said honestly. "I understand why now, but I'm still hurt that you didn't trust me, still angry about what happened to Richard, still processing. I need more time, Thomas, more time to decide if I can get past this, if we can get past this." That night, lying in the guest room, I thought about Richard, about why he'd been so cruel, about what had driven him to that toast. He'd said he was angry about David's death, angry at me for not preventing it, for moving on, for finding happiness. But there was more. I knew there was more. The next day, I drove to Richard's apartment, the one he'd moved to after Jennifer left. Small, modest, nothing like the house they'd shared. He answered the door looking terrible, unshaven, wearing sweatpants, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Mom," he said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, "really talk. About what happened, about why you did what you did, about the truth, Richard, the whole truth." He let me in. We sat in his sparsely furnished living room, just a couch and TV, nothing else, like he'd given up on decorating, on living. "Why did you really mock Thomas?" I asked. "Not the surface reason, not I was trying to protect you, the real reason, the truth." Richard was quiet for a long time. Then, "I was jealous," he said finally, "of you, of your happiness, of the fact that you'd moved on and I couldn't." "Why couldn't you move on?" I asked. "Your father died 10 years ago. That's a long time, Richard. Why are you still so angry?" "Because I never got to say goodbye," Richard said, voice breaking. He died suddenly. 1 minute he was alive, the next he wasn't. And I'd been mad at him. We'd argued the week before he died about something stupid. I'd asked for money to invest in a business deal. He'd said no, said it was too risky. I got angry, said he didn't support me, didn't believe in me, said he was a terrible father. I said that. The last conversation we had, I told him he was a terrible father, and then he died, and I never got to take it back. Never got to apologise, never got to tell him I didn't mean it. Oh, I hadn't known this, hadn't known about the argument, hadn't known Richard was carrying this guilt, this pain. "Richard," I said gently, "your father knew you loved him. one argument doesn't erase 30 years of relationship. He didn't die thinking you hated him. But I never got to be sure, Richard interrupted. Never got closure, never got to fix it, and then you moved on. You found someone new. You got to be happy. And I was still stuck in that moment, still angry at Dad for dying before I could apologise, still angry at myself for being cruel. And I took it out on you, took it out on Thomas, because if I could prove he was a loser, prove you were making a mistake, maybe I could feel like I was protecting you the way I couldn't protect Dad. Maybe I could be a good son this time, but he started crying. I just made everything worse, made everything terrible, and now I've lost you too, lost my career, lost my family, lost everything, and I deserve it. I deserve all of it. I moved to the couch, held my son while he sobbed, this broken, damaged man who'd been carrying guilt for 10 years, who'd taken his pain out on me and Thomas, who'd destroyed his own life because he couldn't process his grief. You need help, I said gently. Real help. Therapy. Someone to help you process Dad's death, process the guilt, process the anger. This has been eating you alive for a decade, Richard. You can't keep carrying it. I know, he said. I know, but I don't know how to fix it. Don't know how to fix any of this. Don't know how to be better, how to be good. You start by admitting you have a problem, I said, by getting help, by working on yourself. Not for me, not for Thomas, for you, because you can't keep living like this. Can't keep being eaten alive by grief and guilt. You need to heal, Richard, really heal. He nodded, still crying, still broken, but maybe starting to understand. Later I called Thomas, told him what Richard had revealed, about the argument with David, about the guilt, about the grief that had been driving his cruelty. That doesn't excuse what he did, Thomas said, but it explains it. He was hurting, and he took that hurt out on us. He needs help, I said, professional help, and he needs, I don't know, maybe a path forward, maybe a chance to prove he can change. Maybe you want to help him, Thomas said, understanding in his voice, even after what he did, even after how he hurt you. You're his mother. You want to save him. Is that wrong? I asked. No, Thomas said. It's human. It's love. And it's why I fell in love with you. Because you're kind, because you care, because you want to help, even when people don't deserve it. But Margaret, we need boundaries. If we help Richard, it can't be at the cost of our own peace, our own happiness. He needs to earn redemption, not just be given it. I know, I said. I know, but maybe we can offer him a chance. Just a chance, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just possibility. If he does the work, if he really changes, maybe then there's a path forward. Thomas was quiet. Then, okay, we can do that carefully with boundaries, but we can offer possibility on one condition. What? You come home, Thomas said. You move in here. You stop living in limbo. You commit to this marriage, to US. I need to know you're choosing me, choosing this relationship, not just staying out of obligation or guilt. Can you do that? Can you choose me? I thought about it, really thought about Thomas, about Richard, about the impossible situation we were all in, about what I wanted, what I needed, and I realised I wanted both, wanted my marriage, wanted my son, wanted to believe both were possible. Maybe they weren't, maybe I was naive, maybe I'd end up hurt again, but I had to try, Had to believe love for Thomas, for Richard, for family, could survive this, could heal this. Yes, I said, I choose you, I choose us. I'm coming home. Resolution and transformation. 6 months later, Richard hit rock bottom. It was Jennifer's lawyer who called me. Professional voice, but I could hear concern underneath. Mrs. Whitmore, I think you should know Richard's been hospitalised. He tried to harm himself. He's stable now, but the doctors think family should be notified. My heart stopped. Actually stopped. What hospital? I managed. I'm on my way. I called Thomas from the car. He didn't hesitate. I'm meeting you there. Wait for me. We arrived together. United. Thomas held my hand as we walked into the psychiatric wing, as we sat with doctors who explained Richard had been found in his apartment by a neighbour after not answering his door for 3 days. Had taken pills, not enough to die, maybe a cry for help, maybe incompetence at ending his own life, but enough to require medical intervention, enough to indicate serious psychological crisis. He's been severely depressed, the psychiatrist said, dealing with multiple losses, job, marriage, family relationships, carrying significant guilt about his behaviour and its consequences. He needs intensive treatment, inpatient care for at least 30 days, then outpatient therapy ongoing. Does he have support? Family who can help? I looked at Thomas. He squeezed my hand. Yes, I said, he has family. We visited Richard that evening. He was in a hospital bed, looking small and broken and young, like the little boy I'd raised, not the 35-year-old man who destroyed his own life. Mom, he whispered when he saw me, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for everything, for the wedding, for being cruel, for... He looked at Thomas, for being the kind of person who judges people by their wealth, who thinks money matters more than character. You were right, both of you. I showed who I really was, and I hate it. I hate who I've become. Then change, I said simply. Do the work, get help, become someone different, someone better. It's not too late, Richard. It's never too late to change. Thomas stepped forward. Richard flinched, probably expected anger, judgment, more consequences. But Thomas sat down, looked at my son directly. Richard, I'm going to be honest with you. What you did was cruel, was wrong, showed character I don't respect, but... He paused. I've been where you are, not exactly, but close enough. I've been broken, I've been lost, I've hated myself. And someone gave me a chance to be better,